Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we are going to be ranking most of the Troughton era. Because it has occurred to me recently, now that I've been able to read the novelization of the Highlanders and the novelization of Abominable Snowmen, that I've actually seen or read most of Troughton's stories. There's only 3 Troughton stories I haven't experienced in some form or another, and that's Space Pirate, which is mostly missing, Wheel in Space, which is mostly missing, and Underwater Menace, which is mostly missing. And that leaves 18 stories. And I am talking about the ones just from his main era, 66 to 69, not his multi-doctor stories. Well, we are going to look at those 18 stories and rank them from worst to best. In my opinion, anyway. I guess I should say least favorite to favorite. Starting in last place, which is 18th place, with Fury from the Deep. This probably doesn't come as a big surprise to some of my regulars. I've talked many times on the channel about my huge dislike of the animation for Fury from the Deep. It's such a good story. It's a really good story, but that animation is just so many steps back from Macra and even the Faceless ones. But it's like pole vaulting backwards from the Macra, which has phenomenal animation. Whereas this has this very 60s Scooby-Doo. I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you and your companions, Doctor. It just looks bad. Some of the artistic choices they make don't work. They make a lot of the rooms too big, which loses some of the claustrophobic nature of the story, where they're supposed to be in these very tight areas. The very obvious budget cuts, like a lot of the security officers wearing these visors that look like Cobra Vipers, because they don't want to have to animate all the different faces. It just seemed like a lot of shortcuts were made. And then the actual animation movements are very choppy. Watch the scene when Jamie and the Doctor have to throw a couch through a window. It looks like South Park. It looks like you're watching an episode of South Park. Nowhere near as smooth as like the Macra. The reconstruction is better, but it's still, since so much of it's all 6 episodes that are having to be reconstructed, it is a bit of a chore to get through. I liked watching the reconstruction. I watched that recently, actually, as a patron video I did for Alice. And I enjoy it, but it's still hard to get through 6 episodes of a recon. This is really kind of the story I wish they could find, or at least find part of. 17 on the list is the Dominators. Now, I like the Dominators for the fact it's completely intact. That's nice. All 5 parts exist. I always have to remember the Dominators as 5 parts. I keep wanting to think it's 4 parts. But other than Troughton and the TARDIS team being really good, it's pretty bad. The Dominator. I remember when I was watching this story for the first time, and when I saw like the 2 Dominators and they're out on their ships talking and they're not even looking at each other and they're just reading the lines like this. Yes, I know. We must go do that. I was just like, ooh, this is going to be a hard one to get through. This might be one of those where everything I hear about it is absolutely right. Because I thought maybe the Dominators was like the Crotons, because I always feel the Crotons is underrated, and I figured maybe the Dominators is better than people say. But I realized very quickly, nope, people are pretty spot on with this one. Luckily, it has some saving graces, like the TARDIS team is good, but Troughton is great. Troughton has some truly magnificent moments in it, and you actually have him admit that he plays dumb sometimes, just to lull other people into a false sense of security. He actually explains that to Jamie in one scene, so I absolutely adore that. Next on the list, in 16th place, is the Ice Warriors. I like the Ice Warriors. It's just a bit dull. It kind of plods along. The animation for the missing episodes is fine. It's mostly intact. I think the actors do a fine job. I really like the guy who kind of plays the leader of the Arctic unit who uses the cane. I like the actual actor playing him, plays him well. Troughton, again, Troughton is pretty much always amazing. That can just be an understood thing for all of these. Troughton's always fantastic. He's one of the best actors to ever play the Doctor, and he's one of my favorite Doctors. He's just so good. The story is just too long. I wish it had been a 4-parter. It tends to drag a little more than I like. Number 15 on the list is the Faceless Ones. The Faceless Ones has grown on me. I think it's still a little too long. I love the fact that a couple episodes of it survived, so I do enjoy seeing that. The animation for it isn't bad. It's a step back from the Macra, but way better than Fury from the Deeps and a lot of what we've had since. I still think it's actually pretty good animation. Not quite as good as Evils, I'd say. It's not quite as good as Evils, but close, but it's still really good. The story, again, is just a little too long. I don't kind of like the animated looks of the chameleons. I wish they'd stuck more with the original look for the chameleons, where they actually look more faceless. I don't really like the chameleons in their natural form, the way they look. It looks a little too much like they have faces. I don't really care for that. But yeah, I still enjoy it. I do think Ben and Polly deserved a better exit, though. Next on the list, in 14th place, is Enemy of the World. I think this one's very overrated. This could be the most overrated Troughton story for me. It's good, and I'm glad the fact it exists now. And Troughton is on fire not only as the Doctor, but also as Salamander. And also as Salamander playing the Doctor, and also as the Doctor playing Salamander. Because he plays all of them different, and it's very nuanced at times, but I really enjoy that. And everyone else in it seems to do alright. It's not one I go back to a lot. I think I've watched it twice. Watched it once when it first came out, and then I went back and watched it again probably last year or the year before. But it's not one I go back to a lot. The ending feels very abrupt. It feels like the ending needed like another 5 minutes. It just kind of ends. And you're like, oh, it's over? It's very abrupt, and that's very off-putting to me. Next on the list, I think we're in 13th place, is the Highlanders. I read the novel version of the Highlanders, and I enjoyed it. It was nice to see Jamie's first story, which I really liked, and I really liked the female Highlander in it, the one that slowly becomes a little more strong-willed and independent the more time she spends with Polly. Yeah, it's Polly at the time. I like that Polly's an influence on her. I enjoy that, watching her get a little more stronger-willed. I like the fact that one of the bad guys in it actually turns out to be a pretty good guy. He ends up helping the Doctor at the end because I think he has a thing for Polly. I like that. And then I like the guy I like the fact that the one guy who really is a bad person kind of gets his comeuppance at the end. I enjoy that. And then Troughton's just great. Even in novel form, I can mentally picture what Troughton is doing as the second Doctor in this story. I can picture it in my head, his voice, his mannerisms, all that, because he's so good in this role. I love the scene in it when he's tricking the one guy into letting him go, and he's like bangs his head on the thing. He's like bangs his head down. He's like, you suffer from headaches, don't you? Well, yes, I always not your headaches. Of course you have a headache. I just banged your head on the table. It's your eyes I'm concerned with. That whole bit when the Doctor just confounds him so much, he convinces the guy to close his eyes so he can walk out of the room. Classic second Doctor. I love that. Next on the list is the Abominable Snowmen. Again, I read the novelization of this. The, of course, flip side to Web of Fear. Web of Fear is basically a sequel to this story. I enjoyed the novel. I thought it was really neat kind of seeing the Great Intelligence, because naturally my first experience with the Great Intelligence was in the modern series, and then of course I saw Web of Fear back when it first released on well, actually not when it first released, back when I got it on DVD a little while back, and so I already was very familiar with the Great Intelligence going in. But it's interesting to see this first story and where he is in this first story, and the Yeti and all the stuff with the monastery. And then seeing Professor Travers when he's younger, and he's a very different person, which most people are. I mean, 30, 40 years, you're going to change a bit. So that was an interesting experience reading through that. I found the story very enjoyable. In 11th place is The Seeds of Doom. I've always, not Doom, Death, The Seeds of Death. Oh, I hate when I do that. The Seeds of Death. I've always enjoyed the Ice Warrior's second story considerably more than the first. Seeds of Death doesn't really drag on to me. I mean, it's a 6-parter, but it fills out its space well. I like the effect when the Ice Warriors kill people, that little... I like that. That's a cool death effect. I always feel sorry for the one guy who's a bit cowardly, but honestly, he's just trying to live. I like the other guy who actually creates the little ring of death that he manages to kill one of the Ice Warriors in, although I think that guy actually gets killed later. The cliffhanger with the Doctor and the rocket is a great cliffhanger. And I think that's the one where Troughton has the line, but you don't want to kill me. Your leader will be upset if you kill me. I'm a genius. I love that. And I like how he's not saying it pridefully. He's just saying it because, well, it's a fact. I'm a genius. I love the way Troughton does that line. I enjoyed the Seeds of Death. Number 10 on the list is the Thecrotons. And I know I place it higher than most would. I've always found the Thecrotons possibly to be his most underrated story. Plus, one, I like the fact it's completely intact. It completely survives. And two, I like the story. I've only watched it once, but I enjoyed the story. It's not necessarily a masterpiece or essential Doctor Who viewing, although being one of the few surviving complete Troughton stories, it should be essential viewing just for that. But it is good, and it has that wonderful scene between the Doctor and Victoria. What's this do? No, wait, go away. No, come back. No, and then she's just over there. Press the button. That whole little bit, it's adorable. It's absolutely adorable. It's like a father-daughter thing right there, or an uncle-niece thing right there, and I love that. It's my favorite scene from the episode. Next on the list is the Web of Fear. I like the Web of Fear. The animation for episode 3 is not great, but it's fine. I can get through it. It works for just being one episode. It's kind of a shame that it's the Brigadier's first episode, even though he's not the Brigadier, actually a Brigadier yet. But I like the Web of Fear. I find it a bit overrated, but I do think it's done really well. That and the fact the sewers actually look like the sewers. I mean, they actually got in trouble because people had thought they'd actually shot in the sewers. The sets were so good. I have to commend them on that. Nicholas Courtney is great as the Colonel/Brigadier in it. Lethbridge Stewart. And seeing the Great Intelligence back, it works as a great sequel to Abominable Snowmen while being creepier and scarier. I like the kind of Mark II look to the Yeti. It's a good one. I think it's a little overrated, but it does have a good atmosphere to it that I like. And anytime you see the foam spewing out, that does look pretty sharp. Number 8 on the list is the Mind Robber. I really enjoy the Mind Robber. It does a really good job at making a lot happen with its minimum budget. It takes a very minimalist approach to this fantasy land, and it makes that work in confines of the 60s Doctor Who budget and pulls it off. I like having Bernard back, the same guy who plays one of the Time Lords in the War Games. I like him as an actor, so I love when he shows up in, I think he's in like 4 different Doctor Who's, because I know he's in Deadly Assassin as well. I always enjoy when he shows up. He's great. I enjoy the Mind Robber. It's Doctor Who being that kind of show that no other show can do, you know, like Doctor Who does. Kind of like one of the reasons why I enjoy Hyde and why I enjoy Ghostlight, when they do these different kind of things. And this is a very different story, and it's very, very good. At number 7 on the list is Tomb of the Cybermen. Another complete Troughton story. The earliest complete Troughton story as it opens season 5. Has some really iconic imagery in it, with the Cybermen, of course, waking up from their tomb and everything thawing out. Has some really great lines from Troughton in it, like, of course, when he talks to Victoria about family. Very, very iconic second Doctor moment. I really enjoy a lot of what's going on in Tomb of the Cybermen. I'm not too keen on the cyber designs and the cyber voices, but I do think it's a really good story. A bit overrated, but a really good Cyberman story. Number 6 on the list is Evil of the Daleks. The animation for this one is really, really good. Not quite up to Macra's level, but really good. Definitely an improvement over the Faceless ones, and way better than a lot of the others we've gotten, and what looks like Abominable Snowmen is going to be. I like this story. I think it fills out its 7 parts pretty well for the most part. You probably could have done it in 6. But I really like how it takes place in like 3 different places and pulls it off. You have like the first episode, which is in like 1966, you know, basically picking up right at the end of the Faceless ones. And then you have like several, like 3 or 4 parts there. Back in 1866 in like the Victorian mansion. That's kind of neat. And then the last couple episodes basically taking place on Skaro. And I like how it's divided up into basically these 3 chapters with all this different stuff coming on. We have Jamie actually at odds with the Doctor, which is not something you see very often. Jamie and the Doctor are usually pretty tight. So to see Jamie that at odds with the Doctor is interesting to see because you don't see that a lot. I love the confrontation in the scene when the Doctor first realizes the Daleks are there in episode 2, which of course is the one surviving episode. And it just goes to show how great Troughton is in that role because he does so much. You can see the difference between the animated version of that and the surviving version of that, where Troughton is doing so much with his body language and his facial expressions that I really wish more of the story survived. And plus it has the human factor Daleks, and that's one of the greatest things in all of Doctor Who. I love the human factor Daleks because they're adorable. They're adorable. Who knew that you could take the chilling, terrifying voice of the Daleks and make them so adorable with such a slight change? Dalek, dizzy, Doctor. And the fact that they just want to play with the Doctor. They're like children, and when he's playing train with them, and I love that. I like that later. It's like, we will obey, but only because we choose to. You know, I love the human factor Daleks. You can make like a little plushie of them. They're wonderful. And then the animation, especially in episodes 5 and 6, the way they do Skaro and the Emperor Dalek is really good. It's interesting because I like to watch like the first 4 or 5 episodes in black and white, but for me, the last 2 episodes or so are better in color. So it's really hard for me to say if I like it better in black and white or better in color, because the last 2 episodes, I really think they look better in color. But it's a phenomenal story. It's a really phenomenal story. Next on the list at number 5 is The Invasion. Easily probably objectively the best Cyberman story from the Troughton era. Not my favorite, but the best. Okay, getting back to this, it's actually been several days since I recorded part 1. I believe we were on The Invasion. I'm not sure how far I got into The Invasion. I really like The Invasion. I think it would rank higher on most people's list if it was complete. Even though the animations for 1 and 4 are good. For the most part, the helicopter scene at the end of part 4 is a little ropey. Other than that, it's pretty good. But the story is great. I think it has one of the best human villains in, Tobias Vaughn, is that his name? I think that's one of the best human villains in Doctor Who. He's almost like a Cyberman himself most of the time. He gets emotional every now and then, though to be fair, 80s Cybermen and modern Who Cybermen do get emotional a bit too. And even 70s Cybermen. So, that actually kind of fits. It's almost like he's a Cyberman that's not fully a Cyberman. He was the lone Cyberman before there was a lone Cyberman. But yeah, the story is great. It's a great unit story. I am always fascinated by non-Pertwee unit stories. It's like a Pertwee story without Pertwee. It's neat. And that's pretty much what The Invasion is. It's like a proto-Pertwee story. Just like Robot is like a post-Pertwee story. I love that. It's pretty interesting. And then I just think the Second Doctor and the Brigadier get on really well. I think they get on better than 3 of the Brigadier get on. I do like 2 of the Brigadier a lot. One of the reasons I love 5 Doctors as well. And then, of course, our first appearance of Benton, and I really like Benton a lot. I'm glad they brought him back. So, yeah, I really like The Invasion. The iconic imagery of the Cybermen rising up from the sewers and walking around the city. Some of the most iconic images in Doctor Who. Plus, I just love this Cyberman design a lot. This, easily my favorite Cyberman helmet is this, and the Revenge helmets. They're easily my favorite. Such an iconic story. I really wish it was complete. Number 4 on the list is Power of the Daleks, which honestly I should place higher. Maybe if the animation is pretty good, especially the special edition, but I do wish it was more like Macra's. The story's phenomenal. It's easily, story-wise, I think the best of Season 4. Usually I rank this story as the best story in Season 4 overall, so why it's not higher on this list, I'm not quite sure. My opinions change too, just like everybody else's. But I love the story. I think it's a great first outing for Troughton. at least from what we can see in the animation and get from the audio. I really wish some of this story survived more than just clips. I really wished episode 1 or episode 6 survived. But the animation is good, especially for the Daleks themselves. David Whittaker is so good at writing the Daleks. He is. I love Evil of Daleks as well, as we've already talked about. David Whittaker just gets the Daleks. He remembers that the Daleks are geniuses, and they are manipulative, and they will use you until they no longer have a need for you, and then they will kill you. That's what the Daleks do. That's what the Daleks are. I am your servant. I love that. And then watching Lesterson and his arc in the story and how he goes from arrogant, just thinking he's a genius, to being paranoid, to just where he has his mental breakdown at the end. Watching that happen is fascinating. The animation does that really well too. And then I love the fact that one of the main villains in it is a female. I get a kick out of that. I like, especially in older shows, when one of the main villains, or antagonist, I should say, maybe villain's too strong a word, is a female, when she's the one kind of, no, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to take over. It's kind of one of those when she gets killed, you're like, ha ha. Much like the other male antagonist, the one that's trying to take over leadership of the colony, when he gets his. It's always kind of fun when you watch those mustached, twirly villains get theirs at the end. But yeah, I love Power of the Daleks. It's my second favorite Dalek story after Dalek from the modern show. I even rank it slightly above Genesis. And it's impressive that it can make it all the way up to number 2 just being completely animated. I think that is a testament to how good the story is. And again, I'm not quite sure why this one's not higher. I don't know why I quite placed it at 4. But I did. Number 3, I put the Macra Terra, and the main reason probably I put the Macra Terra higher is I love the Macra Terra's animation. I was watching a clip from it the other day because I was using a line from it for another video, and I just love that animation. It has such a fluidity to it. I really wish they would spend the money and get Sun and Moon Studios back, because when they move, it doesn't look choppy at all like other animations do. It looks very fluid, the way they turn their head and the way their face works. Looks very lifelike. It's easily the best post-power animation, and one of the best animations, easily. Plus, I love the story. I actually enjoy the story, especially with I enjoyed the reconstruction. I did watch the reconstruction recently for Alice, and I really enjoyed the reconstruction. It has that nice B-movie, giant insect crab-like deal feel to it. But the animation trumps it just because I love the liberties they took with it. I love how they made the Macra look more threatening and more dangerous. Some of the cliffhangers are really good here. A lot of the liberties they took I agree with. I missed the small cutscene, but other than that, I like the liberties they took. The incidental music is really good too. It doesn't always quite match the animation, but it's still really, really good. Plus, it's the one story I really can't make up my mind if I like the black and white version better or the color version better. They're both phenomenal, and they're both very different viewing experiences, honestly, to me. So I have 3 good ways to watch the story. I like the recon, I like the color version, I like the black and white version. I love having those options. That's probably one of the reasons why I rank it so high. Number 2 is the moon base. It probably beats out Power of the Daleks just because 2 of the episodes survive. And gosh, I love Season 4 Troughton a lot. I love Troughton in general, but especially Season 4 Troughton. I think this is my favorite story. It's not my favorite Troughton story, but Power is probably my favorite Troughton story. But my favorite Troughton story concerning Troughton himself, I love Troughton's performance in this story. The surviving footage, I just feel like this is the best performance I've ever seen him put in as the Doctor. I love him in the moon base. It has so many iconic lines with there are some corners in the universe which have bred the most terrible things. And the bit when he's talking later, and he's out for blood, ours! I love all of that. I really wish episodes 1 and 3 survived, because I love episodes 2 and 4. I love the part in episode 2 when he's just running around pestering everybody, plucking out hair samples or getting little little pieces off the bottom of their shoes. He's not even saying anything. He's just walking around doing all of it like he thinks they can't see him. I love that. Because he has to be annoying them, but I adore that. I like the fact Ben and Polly have some stuff to do in it. The animation is really good too. It's probably my favorite animation. They do take some good liberties, like when the Cybermen are walking on the moon in the animation and the live action. That looks really good and creepy, and the incidental music's very fitting there. Really gives that sense of 60s creepiness, which I like. The animation is really good too, like when the Cyberman is coming to Jamie and it's animated the way they do it. It's very creepy. The animation's really good. I am a huge fan of the moon base. It's probably my favorite. I don't think it's objectively the best Trout and Cyberman story, but it's my favorite Trout and Cyberman story. And number 1, the War Games. I love the War Games. It is so amazing that all 10 episodes of this are complete. You'd think it wouldn't be, but it is. I'm happy it is. And for me, it never feels padded. I mean, it is. There is a lot of they get captured, they get free, they get captured, they get free, they get captured, they get free. That does happen, but it doesn't feel padded to me. I'm enjoying all of it. I think it fills out its 10-episode runtime very well. It feels very epic, especially as you're gradually figuring out what's going on. As you know, you think at first maybe they're in World War I or something, and then you start learning about the different time zones, and you start seeing the couple guys running around with the evil glasses. I think that's what Jess called them when she was doing her reaction for the War Games, the evil glasses. That always sticks with me. So you see these guys with the evil glasses, so obviously something's going on there, and you see all the different time zones, and then learning slowly what's actually going on there. And then seeing the Doctor learning the Doctor stole the TARDIS. This is where we learned the Doctor stole the TARDIS. And then him having to call in the Time Lords and seeing how frantic he is to get the heck out of there. This is what I like the Doctor to be. I don't like the Doctor who will slam the door in the Lord President's face. You know, the modern Doctor, like Capaldi being so arrogant, he's basically like, to the Time Lords. I don't like that. I like when the Doctor is terrified of the Time Lords. Because I like when the Time Lords are basically gods. I don't like... The Deadly Assassin really ruins the Time Lords, and they've been going downhill ever since. I love this version of the Time Lords. The Time Lords are never better than they are in the War Games, when they're like godlike beings, and I love that. When they can make people disappear with a thought, and put a force field around the whole planet with a thought. That's the Time Lords. And I love the cliffhanger of episode 9, that scene when you just see all of them running in slow motion at the end is one of my favorite shots in all of Doctor Who. I love when like TARDIS Elliott trailers or Last Uvian trailers uses that clip in their trailer videos. I love that clip. It's a great cliffhanger. And then of course episode 10 is one of the greatest episodes in all of Doctor Who. I love it. Going to Gallifrey, even though it's not called that, for the first time. I love the 3 Time Lords that are ruling over him in his trial. I'm always happy to see Bernard back. I really like Bernard. He's such a good actor. I love when he shows up in Doctor Who. He has this voice, man. His voice just commands authority. I wish I had a voice like that. It just commands authority. He talks and I just, yes, I listen. And then that whole trial is good. And I love the fact the Doctor gets some fun pokes in them too. Like when they say something, you're like, no, you're above criticism, aren't you? Or you're above reproach, aren't you? I love that. And then they say something, we'll get back to you, and he's just like, oh, they'll probably give me a speech and tell me to be a good boy. They like their speeches. I love all of that. That's hilarious to me and very Troughton. That, and it has, I think, one of the saddest goodbyes in it when he says goodbye to Jamie and Zoe. I really like that one because you can tell he doesn't want to. And I think 2 of the saddest words in all of Doctor Who are goodbye, Jamie. Goodbye, Jamie. The way Troughton says that, there's a sadness to it. I mean, it's somber, but it's sad. And he knows there's nothing he can do about it. You know, there's a finality to it. You know, when he just, well, Dr. Weekend, he's just, goodbye, Jamie. And he shakes his hand. And that little wave he does, that is so Second Doctor. That is one of the reasons why I love the Second Doctor. There is so much that's in that little wave. There is so much emotion in that, to me, that I perceive when I get it. My eyes are actually watering up just talking about it. I love that scene. It's so Second Doctor. And I miss that the innocence the Second Doctor has compared to later Doctors, especially modern Doctors who have just been through so much more. I love the innocence of the second Doctor. This little cosmic hobo that just wants to see the universe and experience it, and a whole galaxy out there to see. I love that. That's what I want in my Doctor Who. And I love that little wave he does. It's adorable. And then I love how he stands up to the Time Lords, you know. And while you have been content merely to observe the evil in the universe, I have been fighting against it. I love that. And then how he stands up to him. You can't just change what I look like without consulting me. Of course, then they're like, you'll be given a chance to choose. Oh, well, that's not so bad. I've never seen such an incredulous bunch. I do love the fan-made videos where the images it shows are like future incarnations of the Doctor. Well, he's too thin. He's too old. I really wish they'd put that in like a special edition because I don't know, that'd just be funny for me. And then just watching him spin in the background is a heck of a way to end the series. I like that. Leaves you with so many questions. Where does the show go from here? It's a fantastic ending. I love the War Games. So that has been me ranking the Troughton era stories that I've seen thus far. Keep in mind, it's a very fluid list, and it could be different tomorrow. I'm still sitting here going, why did I put Power of the Daleks at 4? It's my favorite Season 4 story. So if you like this list, go ahead and click the like button. Go ahead and click the subscribe button. Let me know how you would rank these stories down in the comments, or how you rank the Troughton era as a whole. I always enjoy hearing from you guys. Definitely click that thumbs up button. I like that. Other things to do, I do have a Patreon as well. If you like what I do and would like to support what I do, there is a link to that down in the description below. It's always nice watching the Patreon count go up. Puts a smile on my face. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me. There's still a few Troughton stories I haven't gotten through yet. Waiting on that abominable Snowmen animation to eventually release. And I have a link to my Amazon wish list that I update regularly down there as well. Most importantly, though, first off, I almost forgot to thank two of my patrons, Stephen Crane and the Fifth Doctor, because I do appreciate their continued support and the support of all of my patrons. Most importantly, thank you for watching.